So, Lucy, thank you for joining us today. We are here to talk about your Kickstarter campaign for your short film, Santa's Little Helper. I guess before we get into that, we should probably start with, how did you get into filmmaking? It's not an easy career direction to go in. What was it
Yeah.
about this industry that made you decide that this was the one for you and what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I actually started my career primarily in theatre. So I come from a theatre writing and directing background, and it's just I love theatre and I love film, but they just do very different things. They speak to the audience in different ways. You can try and test different things, and what I would say is horror in particular is such a film medium. There's obviously brilliant horror on stage, and I've had some horror projects that I've worked on that have sort of been shortlisted for prizes and things like that in theatre. But the sort of slow build of tension and what you can kind of play around with what the audience see and don't see is just so much more sort of fun and exciting in film. So I've come from a background as well where I've primarily developed as a writer. I've got some cool sort of projects under my belt. There, I was part of the FrightFest New Blood class last year, which was amazing. I'm a Killer Short semi-finalist, and I've written some thrillers for Real One. They do like kind of Lifetime in the US style thrillers, which have been super fun. But I found that leap from writing from stage to screen a lot simpler than directing. And I think part of that is just that the medium sort of demands so many different skills and so many different levels of understanding. And so that's been my real focus over the last year, has been making a lot of sort of low, no budget shorts, collaborating with friends. I did a short filmmaking course, and then this is hopefully going to be my first fully funded short as both writer and director.
I mean, you mentioned the Fright Fest program last year. Their new blood is where obviously they get a lot of sort of new voices, new writers in, and they have kind of like a mentorship program. What was that? What was that experience like? Because it's kind of I cover a lot of Fright Fest, but that's always the bit that sort of like kept a little bit behind the curtain for me.
Yeah, it's really great because it's I think what I enjoyed about it is there's not this kind of really fixed set structure, I guess, that uh a lot of sort of projects like that might have. So you get a bit of the ability to kind of use it in the way that's most helpful for you. So it's run by Giles Edwards, and basically what you do once you've been selected is we get to read everyone else's sort of synopses and their little sort of short snippets of what everyone's submitted. And then you also send the first 10 pages of the script. And then what Giles has done is he sets up a series of mentors. So these change every year, but all of them are filmmakers. And what I think is quite clever is they're all quite different filmmakers. So for example, we had last year we had Andy Nyman, we had Jennifer Sheridan, and as a director, and we also had one of the members of the Addams family, which was really great because it allowed us to kind of see that variety of what if I was to, like the Addams family do, make this myself, and go out there and do it? Or what would it be like if I was working with a director who's done this before, or a production house? And so you can kind of test out those different options. And then off the back of that, and off the back of those discussions, which were super helpful, you then write the full draft of the script, and then you can submit that to Giles, and he uses that as his sort of way to meet new writers and to find new scripts. So it was, for me, for sure, it was a really helpful, really useful process to be able to not just talk through my project with people who've actually made horror films, but also to see, like, well, okay, what would happen if I did it this way? What would happen if I did it that way? What can I be doing now to ensure the best possible success for this project?
I guess one of one of the outcomes of that maybe is, now you're working with Crossroad Pictures
Mhm.
on the short film. How did that relationship begin?
Yeah, so I first met Chris Niles of Crossroad through what's now called the Independent Horror Society, but last year when I joined was the London Horror Society. And actually, he had a call out because they're doing a project with Fear at the moment to make a series of horror shorts that will hopefully be proof of concept for features. And so Santa's Little Helper originally was something that I pitched for that. And Chris and I basically developed a relationship because he really loved the idea. He was really passionate about it. And he also has a daughter, so I know that he recognizes the kind of themes around being a parent at Christmas and some of the inspiration behind the film. And so that was originally how we started chatting. And over the last year, we've just been kind of developing it a bit further and trying to work out what the different routes would be, because eventually what we do want to do is make a feature film version of this. And we do have that script written and we're really excited about it. And so what we're really looking to do at this stage is to get that proof of concept short off the ground. And so Chris brought on Crossroad Pictures as a whole. So he runs that with Scott Lias. And the two of them have just been great because, again, it's not just that. They've obviously already made their first feature, Walking Against the Rain. And so they have that sort of understanding of running projects like Kickstarters before and actually getting stuff made. But also they're just really great eggs. They're really great guys. They've got a really good eye for, what works and what doesn't work on in this industry. And they just love horror and really understand it so well. So it's been a really great partnership to get to have people like that on board.
Okay, so let's now get into Santa's Little Helper. What's the
Yeah.
hook? What's the story here? What are people going to be putting their money into making?
Yeah, so Santa's Little Helper, in short, it was inspired by the Elf on the Shelf craze, which I think in the UK it's Elves Behaving Badly is the kind of company that makes them. But essentially, it's this idea of parents not just having their kids have to be good at Christmas, but that they have to be good at Christmas. So Santa's Little Helper is a festive elf that parents can keep around the house that meant to watch over their kids, make sure that they behave and they can be on Santa's nice list and not make it onto his naughty list. But when our lead, Carol, gets Santa's Little Helper for the first time for her little daughter, she begins to realize that anytime she does something that's not even necessarily that bad, but just not quite perfect, not quite in the festive spirit, that this sort of little elf starts to notice, and weird things start to happen. So really, that's sort of what we wanted to explore, is that idea of, what it's like for parents today to have to be so perfect, particularly in the sort of Instamom generation where what you do is plastered online everywhere. And I mean, I'm sure you've got the same, but if you go through sort of like Instagram reels, it does definitely feel like there's this sort of teaser of there's no way to be perfect. Like, you see sort of you should gentle parent your children. You should not gentle parent your children. You should sleep train your children. Oh no, actually, sleep training your children is neglect, and you shouldn't do that. And it's this sort of impossible task of what it means to be perfect. And we wanted to wrap that up in a Christmas story, partly because Christmas is a time of year where that becomes even more apparent. There's so much that you have to do, but also because it feeds into those sort of wider narratives around what is the meaning of Christmas, what is the point of Christmas, and this sort of commercialization taking over from what should, in theory, be quite a lovely, joyful holiday about generosity and family.
Yeah, there definitely has been that switch, and especially like with the Elf in the Shelf, coming over from America. I mean, I've never done it myself. I'll be honest, I don't have the time or the effort or
Yeah.
the energy because
Yeah,
I
I think
see
that's
what
wise.
yeah, I see what some of my friends go to. It is this like constant. They're having to think of like new inventive ways to, provide their children with magic in a way which are just we didn't I mean it wasn't around when I was young. I think it's quite interesting that this has become such a thing, especially in this country, that we have to now do this, otherwise Christmas is cancelled in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, one of the other what my starting point when I was originally thinking about this as well is that I love Christmas. I like it's one of my favorite times of year, and obviously I'm a massive horror fan. And I think in the UK there's such a strong tradition between Christmas and ghost stories. And like when you think about the most famous British Christmas story, it's A Christmas Carol. It is a ghost story. And it used to be that Christmas was the time where we would tell spooky tales in a way that in, for example, the States, that was much more centered around Halloween. Here in England, it was much more focused on Christmas. And yet, when I think about the films, the horror films that I return to at Christmas, it's all of them really are coming out of America. I'm thinking of there's obviously things like Gremlins, there's Black Christmas, and then modern times there's Krampus, and if you've seen Better Watch Out, very recent, I love Better Watch Out. I think that's great. And It's a Wonderful Knife, which came out last year. So there's a lot of these great, great, great Christmas horrors, but all of them seem to be coming stateside, and it's just so interesting that here we have that strong tradition, and yet there isn't those sort of Christmas horror films coming out at that same sort of speed. So I really wanted to touch on that, for it to not just be here is a film about Christmas and about parents, but specifically here's a British film. And like you said, these sort of trends and inspirations, a lot of them we have adopted from the States. And so that has that kind of added, I guess, intrigue to it, as what does it mean for us to be taking traditions that I know a lot of British parents are like, I don't know why I'm doing this and I don't want to do this, but here I am and I feel like I have to.
Your Christmas horror, it's always sort of been around, but there really does seem to have been like a big sort of resurgence within sort of like the last 5 to 10 years. And I think one of the great things about Christmas horror is that no two are ever really the same. I mean,
Mm,
just some of the ones that you reeled off there. Krampus is very different to Better Watch Out. There was Christmas Bloody Christmas a couple of
mm,
years ago, which
yeah.
is very different to something like it was more sort of action led. But the David Harbour films, Silent Night. What do you think it is about Christmas and horror that does sort of pair up so well, and they can explore such a variety of different horror genres?
Yeah, I think there's two big things. I think one of them is that nature that Christmas is a time when people who may not see each other any other time of year all come together. So you get that interesting melting pot where everyone is pulled together and expected to be happy. This is a time of year where more than anything else, you're expected to be joyful and merry and on form and having a great time. And it's also it's a freezing cold time of year a lot of the time for most people. So I think it's that dynamic that just gives so much room to play with around the expectations of sort of what it should be and what it actually is. But I also think for a lot of viewers, what's interesting about it is to have that alternative. So for example, in the UK, one of the things obviously that's really big at Christmas is a panto. Um, so for anyone who's not based here, that's sort of like a Christmas show, which is usually based on an old kind of fairy tale. So we've got things like Dick Whittington and Cinderella, and there's a lot of really classic tropes that are tied up in it that sort of anyone who goes to a panto every year will recognize. So different, the Dame and things like that. Um, and often you've got this entertainment that's kind of this key core, and a lot of people are looking for something a bit different. And so it's nice to be able to go, okay, over Christmas, I'm going to watch my Love Actuallys and I'm going to watch my Muppet Christmas Carols and I'm going to watch some of these classic Christmas films, but also I love horror and I want something a bit different. And I think that's what a lot of horror filmmakers are starting to see, is they get to the holidays and they think, well, actually, what I want to watch is something that feels festive and feels, within theme, but also speaks to this other part of my life that I'm so interested in. And I think that's also why films like Die Hard remain so popular, because it's clearly a Christmas film. You can watch it at Christmas and no one will bat an eyelid, but also it's a great action film. And so it speaks to those two worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I think I sort of gravitate towards like the more alternate horrors purely because everything Christmas is just so like sweet and saccharine and just I kind of feel like I need to take the edge off of all of that in a way. So I need to watch something that's, a bit nastier to sort of like take the edge off of all of that
Yeah.
like jolly stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously the Kickstarter, it's at that time of talking, it's been going for a few days. How's it going so far?
Yeah, we've been really happy that in the first few days we've gotten nearly to that first 1K milestone. We're just that tiny bit short, which I hope we'll be able to tick up to soon. So I've been absolutely overwhelmed by the support from colleagues and friends and people that I've met in the horror community. I think it's such a supportive community, and so it's been really great to see so many of those people come out and support us and rave about how excited they are on Twitter and Instagram. What we do know though is that this sort of first week or 10 days of a Kickstarter are so key, and we really want to get to that sort of first few grand by the time we get to the end of this week. And so that's where we're really pushing for this week. And I think in particular, we know that for sort of more people outside our network to see it and be excited about it, for more people just browsing Kickstarter to get it higher up. We know that we need to start to hit those milestones, really ideally by the end of the first week, which for us will be Thursday. So yeah, it really excited, really promising start, but there's definitely a way to go. And so that's why we're here, and that's why we're hoping we can get more support and more sort of excitement built up for this project.
And how can people get involved? Like Kickstarters always have like a lot of perks and things. What sort of things have you got on offer for people? And how can they help? Because I know that, even just word of mouth helps these projects, immensely.
Yeah, 100%. So if anyone is able to make a donation, whether that's a small or large, we've got, as you mentioned, a big range of perks. And so that starts with things like us doing the social shout outs, getting access early to see the film once it's completed. We've also got posters made, and we're working at the moment on some really cool concept art, which I'm very excited to get to share soon. Which as the perks go up, you'd also get access to those as well. And then when we get into that higher level, that's when we get things like access to join us at the cast and crew premiere, getting those IMDb credits like exec producer credits, which we know are so important for so many people, and a great way if you are someone who knows that you do want to go into filmmaking potentially in the future as producer, investor, or in any other way. We know these kind of opportunities are great to get that IMDb cred, and also to get to meet the team and get to meet everyone. So we do have that wide range of perks available on our Kickstarter. But as you mentioned, we totally understand that for a lot of people, particularly right now, are just not in a position to be able to give money. And what we really would appreciate is for people to shout out about us on within their networks, wherever those networks are. So if that's on sort of socials, if that's WhatsApping your mates and your family, if that's on forums like Mumsnet or in horror forums, that's great. We just want people to be getting the word out there, to be saying, do you know what, this is a project that I know this team. I think they're going to be great. I'm really excited about this. I'd love to see it happen, even if I can't donate. So please, spread the word and help get other people to recognize it and hopefully be able to give a little bit themselves.
And when are you looking to shoot this project?
So we want to hit the ground running. We're aiming to shoot it in April. The Kickstarter wraps in the first week of April, and so by the end of April, we're very much hoping that the shoot will have wrapped as well. Um, we're pretty confident about being able to do it because we've done a lot of the the sort of prep that we know we need in advance. We've obviously got a great team on board. So it's just about making sure that we've secured those funds and then getting all those all those sort of balls rolling to make it happen.
And what sort of your end goal for the shot? I know you mentioned like proof of concept for the, for hopefully becoming a feature. But what about the short itself? You're hoping, to take it to festivals, maybe return to Fright Fest this year with a short, sort of like, progressing up from being New Blood last year, then filmmaker this year.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's also one of the benefits of being able to shoot it sooner rather than later is that we're able to hit the festival circuit this year. So yeah, I would absolutely love to be back at Fright Fest with a film for people to see. So that would be the goal, and then to go into all of the festivals sort of following that, particularly leading up into sort of the autumn, fall, Halloween season. So yeah, we really hope that we can get some traction with this because we think it's such a fun short that we believe will resonate with quite a lot of audiences. So we have a lot of faith in the feature and all the sort of promise of what that brings and the things that we'd be able to do with cool set pieces, sort of similar Final Destination style. But for the short, we also think that that's the kind of project that will build a lot of excitement, will be something that a lot of people will recognize within their own lives, and hopefully be something that people just love to watch.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck with the campaign.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kat. This has been great.